It's kind of ironic that I'm actually discussing this one at the same time that, Des Shinta is, I always mispronounce that and I apologize. I've been getting that name wrong. It's Des, not Des. Ugh, sorry. But anyway, Des Shinta is currently on his final, proper proper string of videos of reviews, and Tales of Grace's F is actually one of the ones that he's doing for that. But it, but since he is very likely not going to be talking about Tales of Arise, I am going to go ahead and I am going to talk about, well, as I just said, Tales of Arise. For the record, this will also include Beyond the Dawn. I'll just put that all in one chunk because to be honest with you, yeah, it's like a third of it's like a third of my third page. I effectively have 3 pages of notes for this game. Well, more like two and a third. So two and a third because I actually started because my notes for this started just after my notes for 10 and 10-2, which of course you won't be seeing the video on that until later. I actually already recorded that from my perspective. Again, you record what you can when you can, right? I'm doing a bit of a dark, and that's a bit of a YouTube dark, and that's actually how I'm cranking out these videos. After I'm done with this, I'll probably move on to the Blazing Blade video and then probably start watching uh, Trails of Cold Steel Northern War. Or so I will say this: I always kind of liked the kind of pseudo action style of the Tales of series, because the Tales of series doesn't go for a traditional turn-based format, but it's kind of an action hybrid, but not in that stupid you get screwed over so quickly way like in, say, Lightning Returns, but more so in a way that's more like, yes, you have a specific amount of art usage and whatnot, but the thing is that I feel like there's more strategic value in how you attack, and the regens are very, very quick. Too. You just stay alive for a few seconds, and then you can keep going. In many cases, if you do it properly enough, it can feel like you're basically not even really pausing at all. Unless you're like me in this game and constantly using swallow blade, swallow blade, swallow blade, swallow blade. Now, admittedly, I am not a fan of the gameplay. I'll just go ahead and be honest about that. And I have a funny feeling that even if I were to review something like Tales of Berseria or Zestiria or Vesperia area or Symphonia, the Symphonia games, or Abyss, I think it would be the exact same thing. I would probably not enjoy the gameplay too much. That being said, I do find the story. I do think that there's some merit in the stories, though I have to question that because, for those not to know, at this point in time, my best friend Stephen V, link to his stuff in the description, is actually going through Symphonia 1, the PS3 version specifically, on on his streams, and he is well, let's just say the Tales of storytelling is starting to it is starting to show a lot of cracks that have always been there. Characters being fucking stupid, characters turning on each other on a fucking dime, fucking and this of course leading to loyalty shifting, and there's a lot of there's a lot of stupid on display, and to be honest with you, I honestly do feel like there's a lot of blame the character that wasn't responsible type of thing, which happens a lot, right? It happens so damn often. Even in this game, now that I'm thinking about it, it actually happens to Shion a bit. But again, that's because racism, 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 rather than, and my dad's a dick, but you're all punching me in the dick instead of because he died, so you can't slam his face into the fucking rocks like you fucking should have. But instead, you kissed his ass, licked his boots, and sucked his cock. You fucking morons. And that one in question, by the way, is Aston from Tales of Graces. Oh God, I hate that. Again, link to Des Shinta's reviews on that. Basically, when I edit this and release it, I will basically link. When I release this, I'll be linking chapter one, and basically then you can just, because again, that first episode, just, it's a couple hours long, but it fully goes into detail of just how fucking thoroughly the fact that entire narrative blames Ospel for crimes he did not commit, it and could never have committed, is just fucking stupid. Stupid. Everything's Aspel's fault. Well, even though his father's the one that's stabbing me in the dick. There's a reason why my three favorite characters in that game, well, four favorite characters in that game, are Richard, Sophie, Captain Mallet. No, yeah, it's three. Why my three favorite characters in that game are Sophie, Pascal, and Richard. No, Sophie, Pascal, Richard, and Captain Malik. Yeah, there we go. Four. Sorry. Miscounted. Three times. God, I'm terrible. Anyways, there's a reason why those four characters are my favorite in Graces. Because they don't treat Asbel like they don't act like assholes to Asbel. No, not even when Richard goes kind of insane and dives into the dark side. That's because he's gone insane, dude. Not because he's a fucking moron and who's sucking sucking the cock of Asbel's dad. Although, in some cases, that's more so the fact that they don't have two brain cells to rub together. Other Hubert and Sharia coming to mind immediately. No, not that Hubert. That Hubert's actually got a fucking. And no, not that. And no, not that Hubert. Hubert. That Hubert actually has a fucking brain in his head. You know? Fuck. God. Anyways, I digress. I think the problem I run into when it comes to Arise specifically, to circle this back around to here, each Tales of game has a narrative point that they hammer into your brain, into your skull, over and over and over and over and over and over and over again, right? Now part of that is an overarching, racism is bad, we're all people at the end of the day kind of message, which this one practically flat out acknowledges with the Renans and the Danans, but I'm getting too far ahead of myself. But the problem is that there's always one aspect of the story that the story keeps hammering into your skull that just drives me up a wall, right? Right? Lloyd is a monster because he had to defend himself. Aspel's guilty of all of the crimes that his father committed. Now, obviously, I can't I can't speak to any of the other pro tags. I can't speak to the one from Abyss. I can't speak to the one from Vesperia, and I can't speak to the one of Zestria or Velvet in Berseria area. Although, oh fuck, anybody saying Velvet is responsible for what happens with the prologue of Berseria. Oh fuck! Those people need to have their reproductive organs irradiated. In my opinion, no, they don't need to be killed. We just need to make sure that they can never have children, because that level of stupid needs to be removed from the gene pool. So each one just has that. Admittedly, I think that, but I suppose I've gotten way off topic, haven't I? Because I meant to talk about the gameplay, but this also does kind of cycle into gameplay, because one of the big problems that has always been an issue with Tales of games is, well, outside of maybe Symphonia, is a problem that this one and Graces suffers. Being forced to have characters that are in your party that you don't like. Now, admittedly, one thing that Arise does that actually works is that each character has a purpose. There's something that each of the characters is good at dealing with. So, for example, with Alphen just being kind of a jack of all trades, Shion's good at dealing with flyers. Rinwell's good at canceling the casting of arts. Law is good at breaking through armor. Kisara is able to stop charging enemies. Shit, what was Doleem's one? Right. Dohalim is for when you've got an enemy that's dodging your moves all the time. You have Dohalim use his boost attack, and then bam, right? There's also the cinematic boost attacks, which are meant to be these big, giant, flashy finishing moves that Elfin will use the Blazing Sword to utilize. Nice, and those are actually pretty cool. Cool, right? I actually kind of enjoy the combat, but it did start to get a little on the old side after a while, admittedly. But I do like the combat. The audio spam, not so much. I also like the Blazing Sword mechanically. It's kind of a risk versus reward, because you can actually use the Blazing Sword's charge attacks, but it's just it costs you HP to use. It's a nice little risk reward. Cooking gives you different stat boosts, so that's good. I don't like the difficulty curve, if I'm honest. I feel like it's too. It almost feels like a staircase of spikes more than anything. Not so much a cliff, just like a staircase of spikes, because each step you take is another spike. Not a giant spike, but a spike nonetheless, I did like the reset, admittedly, of fighting the different the reset that Beyond the Dawn gave, so it could be its own little mini campaign. That was actually kind of nice. But otherwise, yeah, I don't really have that much to say gameplay wise, and I think that's why it bled over into the story so much. But now is the time when I'm just going to go full on spoilers on this one, because I don't really have that much to say on the gameplay. I basically said all of my piece on stream. I don't really enjoy playing this game, but it is definitely not. There are worse games out there. Hell, within the year I'm recording this, 2024, I have played way worse games, even gameplay wise, than this. No, seriously. Actually, what's funny is I guess I should just leave that spreadsheet up because I can even tell you gameplay wise how many uh how many games are above it are above it. Let's see. Tales of Arise is 26th place. So let's see. Gameplay wise, how many are below it? Gameplay wise, let's see. So FF2 is on par. 13.2 is, or no, sorry, I'm looking at the wrong thing. Uh, but yeah, FF2's gameplay is below it. Hell, Trails from Zero, which is actually above it in the rankings. Rankings has worse gameplay in my opinion. I know people want to shoot me, but FF10 and FF3 have worse gameplay. Cold Steel 2, though that's got an asterisk to it. After FF4 After Years has worse gameplay. I know people want to shoot me, but Fire Emblem Engage's gameplay is worse. FF13 has way worse gameplay. Lightning Returns is the worst game I've ever played in my life. So that kind of goes without saying. Sky the Third, I would argue, has worse gameplay. FF4's 3D version has worse gameplay, in my opinion. And I think that's it. Yeah. So there's a whole bunch of games I can say that are worse gameplay wise. In fact, I can say the same about the story too, while we're on the subject. Because the story only scored plus 12. And that's because it's got a lot of issues. It's got a lot of issues. I don't I don't really hate this story. I just got sick of this story after a while. This is one of those stories where if I'm gonna say if you're gonna play through this, take your time. Do not marathon this thing. Take your time. Go at your own pace. If you feel like you want to keep going, do so. If you feel you need a break, take a break because this story is got a lot of issues. Like I said. It's got some interesting gameplay beats. It's also got a lot of irritants on the gameplay. But otherwise, yeah, no, it's fine. But now it is time for the big spoiler section. So, spoiler, 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 spoilers, spoiler, spoiler, spoilers, spoilers, spoiler, spoiler, spoilers, spoilers. Okay. Give you a bet. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right. So I'm debating on how I want to go through this, if I may be so bold. And I think I'm just going to go through it linearly from point to point. So we start with Alphen being known as Iron Mask because his face is completely obscured by a mask. And then when the mask starts to come off, he remembers his name in an admittedly cheesy scene. And of course, we meet Xion, who cannot be touched because of her curse, known as thorns. In massive amounts of pain to everybody but Alphen, who ends up touching her. Only dude who's ever gonna get with her joke. We're walking. I don't know if they ever actually deal with her thorns on a permanent basis, but I'd like to think they managed to find some way. Hey. So then we go and we meet up with the Crimson Crows. It was led by Zephyr, who is opposing the Lord of the region, Balseth, who's this big hulking brute and this is also where we start to get into what I like to call the racism overload. This entire the problem with this story and its dialogue is it basically you can sum up a lot of the dialogue as racism, 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 because this story wants you to understand that its big theme is racism is bad, right? Just like, for example, Fire Emblem's got an overarching theme of war is hell. Here's the problem. Fire Emblem's war is hell message is is subtext, right? It's subtext. They are trying to show you why war is hell. Hell, what it does to people, what bad writing can do to other people. Not going to get into that. Check Stephen V's Shadows of Valencia stream for more info on that. I think the biggest problem for me, bar none, is it's too much. And nowhere is that more apparent than with the character of Rinwell. It pisses me off because she's voiced by the same voice actress who voices Happy over in Fire Emblem Three Houses, and I fucking adore Happy. She is an amazing character. And the problem is that she's playing a character here that is just so arrogant and full of herself that it just gets to the point of irritation. Now, you might be thinking that I would be saying that about, the character voiced by Bryce Poppenbrook, aka Law, but honestly, no. Law got better after a while. He got so much better after a while. But again, the problem that ended up happening with me was Alphen and Shion, through the strength of their voice actors, Ray Jace and Erica Lindbeck, respectively, were carrying large portion of the game, especially in the early parts, and especially in the first two areas, because Rinwell is just racism the character, which is just fucking irritating, and Law is a hypocritical jackass. Yes, who suddenly, when his dad dies, he thinks everything's okay now, because even though he joined the frickin' Renans, but whatever. So yeah, Law is not great. I had a very bad point of that, I have nothing to say about Balseph. Balseph was just the weakest of them. I do like the twist that Menek was Ganabelt, by the way, the second Lord. That was a nice twist. I liked that. I also like that he has a point, because Alphen was the disruption to the status quo. That's always a nice touch, because, somebody who can use the blazing sword, yeah, that's a disruption. Let's be real. So then we deal with Ganabelt. It doesn't help Slodian right away, which is a point I like, by the way. But Law's victory moment against Ganabelt just feels fucking hollow. Again, he joined the enemy faction. Come on, dude. Anyways. But then this leads into the third area, Menancia. I love the Menancia section. Absolutely fucking adore it. Menancia is a paradise. And I mean that in almost every sense of the word. Yes, it's got a dark secret, but its leader is not the one perpetuating the dark secret. I have my issues with Kisara getting upset because of the reasoning behind Dohalim creating the thing, and I really fucking hate Shion going to try and shoot him, because that was just so fucking. Because that was totally a fucking smart move. Except, no, it fucking wasn't. What the fuck were you high on at that point, Shion? But I also like that it subverts your expectations. Not just in the fact that Renans and Danans are peacefully coexisting in Menancia, but because the underground resistance movement isn't actually trying to it isn't actually trying to overthrow Dohalim or to kill him or whatnot. No, that's what the original goal of the Gold Dust Cats was. What shit, I'm suddenly not remembering his name. Miguel, that was it. It. What Miguel intends to do is to bring attention to the phenomenon known as the hollowing. Basically the liquefaction that happens when all of the astral energy, which is the natural energy of the Tales of the Universe, is drained out of a person. Someone is deliberately killing your people under your nose, Lord Dohalim. You need to be made aware of it. I praised the hell out of that scene for one very simple reason. It made perfect sense. Because again, the point was not you did this. It was someone is doing this under your nose and you need to be aware of it. Because because Miguel believed enough in Dohalim to say, "You're not responsible for this, Lord Dohalim. I know that." Credit where it's due. That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. Then, I have my issues with Kisara's reaction. It simultaneously is a good and a bad scene. It's a good. It makes sense that she would have that reaction, but I feel like her reasoning for trying to throw the piece away is frankly bullshit. His motive is selfish, so therefore we need to toss it out the window. Toss all that he's achieved out the window. He's not Mangala, you fucking moron. Come on. Now, again, I had to temper myself. And I had to temper myself and give positives and negatives to that because I hate what the narrative is saying, but I also like the fact that it makes sense considering she's not in her right mind at that point. She just lost her brother in that moment. In case you missed that, right? So then we go and deal with Kelsalik's uprising, I think, because Kelsalik doesn't like living in a utopia, I guess. Fucking asshole. So then we deal with all of that. Dohalim joins up with us. And then we go into the next area, and this is where we deal with the dark wings and Daisame and Kynaris? There's Psycho Bitch. Can I just say I fucking called it? I forget exactly which part I called. But actually, I could look that up. Give me a moment, because I'm pretty sure I jotted it down in the negatives. One moment. Oh yeah, and yeah, I did call Canera what was going to happen with that. It was either going to be they were going to kill They were gonna kill a crazy. They were gonna kill Canaris, or Canaris was gonna turn out to be a psychotically evil bitch that was waiting for that moment. Yeah, it was the latter. So yeah, I called it from a million miles away that Canaris was actually going to be evil and was going to was going to be super evil. I called that like just so easily that wasn't even funny, and I hated the fact that I predicted it. So this is of course when we get the stupid scene with Rinwell's desire for revenge and the whole revenge bad crap. Yep. Which leads to the confrontation with Canaris, which this is where the story really just started to feel hollow for me. Because because this arc focused on Rinwell and it sucked as a result. So then we go and deal with Volrin, who's voiced by Joe Zaya. So here's the one bad role Josiah has. As I don't like how they get Josiah to perform this character. I'll be honest with you. There's just something kind of off about it, and it's just. Eh. So Volron shows up. Alphen's mask shatters. He's able to feel pain, and this is when we start getting into his past and how he's multiple hundreds of years old, kept alive by the fact that he was asleep for a while, and he had the mask. Well, because they were experimenting, and they wanted a sovereign, what they called a sovereign, and they were performing experiments for that. We end up at a village called Thistleum, and the heart to hearts there are admittedly good. Then we head to Plegion and then go to try to save Shion. And we succeed. That was an awesome scene, by the way. The confronting her despite her thorns thing. That scene was just beautiful. I loved that scene. Then we confront Volron, which leads us into the second the second thing after the Renis Alma basically gets hijacked from us. The 1 month later time skip doesn't work, by the way. It just feels like it should be like a week at most. And I'm also not a fan of everything past the second opening for the most part. Because I basically have no notes until the wedge shows up. And then we go and we deal with that. So then we find Alphen's ship and we take off to Lenegus. To Lenegus to try and deal with the thorns. By the way, we go through the data room. We get a sliver of hope that the thorns can actually go away. Volron is alive, of course. I do like the jump, the scene where Shion has to jump. That was nice. Then we go and then Dohli makes a speech to kind of inspire Lenegus, which is nice. Then we basically go onto the space station and find out that Renins and Danins are the same species because, yeah, that was another thing that I practically called. I was like, yeah, they're going to be the same species, aren't they? And sure enough, yeah. It's a nice. I did like it as a twist, but it is predictable. Let's just be honest about it. So then then they head to Rena to try and deal with the Great Eight Spirits. Hear it and just put an end to all this crap, and then Volron steals the final boss position because screw your stupidity. Yeah, I wasn't a fan of the outro either. I felt like it just did not work. Which leads us into the expansion, Beyond the Dawn. Now, admittedly, I do like that the racism thing is still rampant. That's nice because racism isn't something that should just be solved overnight, you know? Hell, in real life, if it has taken us multiple decades, needs to figure that out. And arguably, we still haven't figured it out. So then Nazamil, a lord's daughter apparently, is encountered, and everybody really kind of dotes on her a bit too much, and it kind of comes across as a bit Mary Sue-ish, I'm not gonna lie. Right. So Nazamil has the power to basically drain astral energy, which has this that causes the hollowing, of course, and everybody's all freaking terrified of her. And so they start basically attacking her, not realizing, wait, if she can drain astral energy, wouldn't she be able to just drain us and be done with it? Which leads to Elfin being enraged, which is just no, I agree with him getting mad because that was just fucking stupid. Then we have another stupid time skip because why not? Not. And then Alfin basically makes a choice makes a choice to try and deal with all this, and he goes ahead and he basically makes a big impassioned speech each to the people that to get the people to go ahead and to deal with that. So then we catch up with Nazamil, and she's wearing masks, aka the suppressors, and she's kind of got some misguided ideals because of all of the way she's trying to go about taking over the world. She's trying to basically pacify everybody and turn them into mindless slaves. I get what she's trying to do, but it's kind of misplaced, you know? So then we go and we deal with Nazamil and free her from the ridiculousness. I really don't have much to say about the Beyond the Dawn stuff. It's whatever. It all depends on whether or not you end up liking Nazamil. If you like Nazamil, cool, it's interesting and all that. But if it's not, then yeah. Now, if it seemed like I was blasting through all of that really quickly, it's for a very simple reason. This plot is too goddamn predictable. No, seriously, this is a predictable as fuck plot. It doesn't work. It's not very well. In my opinion, it's not very well written. It's got a lot of problems, and at the end of the day, I was just exhausted experiencing this story. I was exhausted going through this thing. If you give me a moment, I will. It'll tell you 10 sessions, including Beyond the Dawn. Beyond the Dawn was 2 sessions, and I was kind of getting sick of Beyond the Dawn by that point, though I was sick of the entire game by that point. The main story only took me 8 sessions to complete, and that says everything I think it needs to. I was exhausted by the time I got out of Tales of Arise because it was just wearing me down. Both the gameplay and the story were just not great. There are better games out there, and to be honest with you, I'll be talking about one next because, from my perspective, the game I'm going to be talking about next is Fire Emblem Blazing Blade. Kind of fitting in that regard, isn't it? Considering the whole, the blazing sword is in this one, and one of the names for FE7 is Blazing Sword. I throw up my hands. Regardless, though, I hope you've enjoyed my thoughts. And to be honest with you, I don't blame you if you like Tales of Arise and its story, but I feel like they were hitting the nail on the head a little too often for my liking. And it just kind of got old after a while, if I may be so bold. So until next time, Blue Wolf Alex of the Lore Walkers signing out. Have a good one. See you later.